guys? I wanted to show some updates I made, and well, only really one update right now, but I purchased a bunch of equipment and I'm just going to talk about it and explain what I ended up getting. I've been probably spent about $1,000 in the last few days. Number one, you can tell I have the new Nighthawk R7000 router from Netgear. This thing is gigantic, and I tested it. It does seem to have better range. I walked like at the end of my house, and I still am getting like 4 out of 5 bars, or 3 out of 4. I mean. So here's the old router I had. It's an AC66U. You can tell it's much smaller, and depth-wise is much smaller. There's actually a dual-core 1 GHz processor, and it even has the potential of overheating, I think. But yeah, this thing's pretty cool. It's a gigantic, number one. And from all the benchmarks, this thing has really good range relative to like this, which already has good speed and everything, but the range isn't as great as this. So this guy's awesome. I put DDWRT on it immediately. It's super easy to flash because Netgear is pretty open about this software you can put on there. What's weird about it is it has only one USB port up here at the USB 2.0, and there's USB 3.0 down here. Let's see if you can see that. I think, where is it? Let me see. Yeah, it's over here. Yeah. So the USB 3.0 is in the front, which is kind of stupid. I guess if you had a hard drive and you had it laying on a table, but yeah, I had to move the screws around to get this to wall mount, but there you go. This one I'm going to be giving to my sister, so put it at my sister's house to update. She has 2 DDWRT access points in her house, she has 1 and then 1 Cisco one that's only a G. I'm going to get rid of that G one and replace it with this AC one. So she'll have an AC and an N in her house now, at 2 opposite ends of her house. So that's for wireless. That's pretty much what I'm doing. My house is pretty small actually, so this is way overkill, but you know, I might as well get the fastest, best possible thing, because I'm going to probably buy a house in a few more years, and actually by then it won't really matter, but whatever, I like having the best. So there's that. Printer works on it just fine, just like any other DDWRT machine. Okay, so now let me go through the other updates. So on this guy, I haven't done these things because I just purchased the equipment recently, but on this guy I have, this is my FreeNAS machine. It's has a Celeron, Sandy Bridge Celeron processor, G530. It's kind of like the same speed as an i3, but a little bit slower and with a lot less features. But the cool thing about the Sandy Bridge Celeron Pentiums and i3s is, even though they're not the Xeon processors, they do have ECC support. Not the i5s or i7s, but just the Celeron Pentium and i3. So with a server motherboard and chipset, one of those processors, only Sandy Bridge, not Ivy Bridge, and with ECC RAM, you're going to get ECC support. So this right now is 32 gigs of RAM, DDR3, but it's not ECC. So I bought 4 8 gig sticks, so another 32 gigs of ECC RAM, bought a server motherboard, and I'm going to put that in there with that $35 Celeron processor, so it's the slowest possible processor you can have for it, but still have ECC RAM, and this thing is going to be awesome. It's going to be very careful with your data. Basically, it's going to have ECC support, so problems in RAM are going to be fixed for 90% of the time. If you have 2 flip bits and they're right next to each other, I think it can't fix that case, but it still catches it. So yeah, so basically that's my update. Is I bought a server motherboard. I bought a used one for $115. It's X9 SCM. It's a super micro motherboard. The chipset is C204. It's one of the server ones. Normally those would probably be around $150 minimum, but eBay is, you know, a great place to find used items and stuff like that. So the server motherboard, and then the 32 gigs of ECC RAM. ECC RAM is a little more expensive, almost double, but I ended up making a deal with someone on eBay and got the 32 gigs for $260. So 115 plus 260, and now this will have ECC support. That's what that is. I'm going to take the 32 gigs of RAM from here and put it in here. This currently has 16 gigs, but this is now going to be going to 32. This is my web server. It's running an i5 Sandy Bridge 2500 not K edition. So the 2500, and it has 16 gigs of RAM, and I'm gonna update this. I'm to 32 gigs of RAM. Number one. Number two, I'm buying. I bought a new processor for it. I bought a i7 Ivy Bridge 3770S. It can. It's essentially an i7, but it can ramp down to lower speed. So if it's not being utilized fully, it can ramp down and actually use less wattage. That's what the S signifies. So, but it also has the increased amount of threads, so it can go faster, but it can also go slower if power concerns need be. So get an i7 for this, 32 gigs of RAM. It's running FreeBSD 10, and it's running on two Intel 320 160 gig SSDs in RAID 1. So they're not RAID 1, it's in they're mirroring each other, so if one breaks, but that's considered RAID 1, but it's on ZFS, so it's just called mirrors. So if one of them gets destroyed, everything just runs as if nothing happened. So yeah, this will be pretty spec'd out machine at that point. It's my web server and runs databases for that. So right now it's just running WordPress and Pydio, which is a file manipulating website. You can like store files and stuff like that, but I'm going to be running a lot of different PHP applications on this eventually. I'm going to be running ZoneMinder to do IP cameras around my house, and I'm going to be running NZB, which is a NZB indexer, which I've run before, but I'm going to get it all set up on here, and then I'm going to probably have it open to the public, so that will help people index their stuff. And those are the two programs. I'm also going to run my own cloud on here instead of here, just because it'll be faster for the database access because it's on SSDs. But I'll store all the files here. This has 16 terabytes of usable space. It has 10 2 terabyte disks, but I'm also thinking of one day updating this and getting another RAID card and making it 19 drives of 4 terabytes, but that would cost me about $3,000, and that's not something I'm going to probably do now. It's not like the money is a concern, but there's no need to. I'm going to wait for 4 terabyte drives to get cheaper. So yeah. So for now, I just got ECC RAM for this, increased the amount of RAM, updated it to an i7. I'm going to take that i5 and give it to my nephew, replace his Celeron in his computer, because for gaming an i5 would be helpful. So yeah, those were the updates I've done so far. I've also just today purchased a new SSD for my computer. I have a 250 gig 840 non-pro, non-evo version of Samsung SSDs. It's the first one that was triple layer cell TLC. It's pretty. It's worse than the Pro and the Evo version. The Evo is the same thing. It's also triple layer cell, but it has a single layer cell cache to speed up writing. Triple layer cell is slower for writing because anytime you change anything, it needs to copy those 3 cells to another block and then overwrite it and then copy it back. So it ends up being more because it's triple layered. For sequential writes it doesn't matter, but for like random writes it slows down. So that's where the single layer cache would be helpful. So I bought a 250 gig. So basically the same exact thing, but the Evo version. And I'm going to put that in here. And then I'm going to take mine and just give it to my nephew. And, basically his gets all of the rejects from mine. But his computer is going to end up being pretty spec'd out anyway. He'll have a 250 gig SSD. He only has a 128 in there right now. And, he'll have an i5, but not overclockable. Yeah. So anyway, that was just one I wanted to show so far, and hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later.